welcome to the Let's Talk About Things podcast. I am one of your hosts, Holly, and this is my sister, Lacey, and this is our pilot episode of this podcast. And today's topic we'll get into a little bit later, but to give you a sense of who we are sisters, and we are from El Paso, Texas originally, living in more west central Texas now. I am a attorney, somewhat retired-ish. I'm a stay-at-home mom now, mostly, and a part-time professor. And so that's what I do for a living. I'll let Lacey tell you what she does for a living.
Yeah, same thing. Born and raised in El Paso. Came to more central Texas for college, grad school. Went and explored many different job aspects and opportunities for a while, and now I am back where I went to school at Angelo State University, and now I am in sales. So I'm actually doing sales, and I travel all across the nation. And I have two beautiful nieces. One is her daughter, the other is my twin brother's daughter, and my life is great. I couldn't be happier.
Speaking of sales, do you have anything fun coming up or anything exciting, or did you do anything exciting recently?
Oh man, we've been traveling so much, but actually this upcoming week I'm traveling to Colorado. So I will be in Colorado helping out some customers, hopefully getting them what they need, and then I'll be coming back.
What part of Colorado?
We are doing Denver for one customer, Colorado Springs for the second customer, and then back to Denver for the night before a flight. Well, Aurora, but...
Aurora. Well, we were laughing about this earlier because if y'all have been paying attention to the news, there's been some, not that it's a laughing matter, but we were kind of, nervously giggling about the fact that she's going to Aurora because if you've been watching the news, there's some issues with the Venezuelan gangs that are there. So we're kind of going to be praying for Lacey and her team's safety while they're there. But yeah, the world of sales, you never know what you're going to get. As far as me, it's the second week of school for the university that I teach at. So last week I gave the students kind of a syllabus week, a kind of get your book together type of week. And this week we actually jumped into the lectures and the assignments, and I lectured on the branches of government and things like that. So my week is not quite as exciting as Lacey's, but that's what I do. And it's also been my first week as a stay-at-home mom. I resigned as an attorney the week before that was my last week, and it's been my first week as a stay-at-home mom. So I am learning my daughter's rhythms, her routines, all the ins and outs of that. I am definitely getting my butt kicked in some areas, but it's been a ton of fun learning. So yeah, that's kind of us, and you'll get to know us through this podcast hopefully, but that's just kind of a little bit of background, a little bit of who we are. And I guess to jump into the topic for today, we kind of just were talking about waiting seasons because we feel like that is something a lot of people struggle with, and especially young people. I feel like we're always waiting for the next thing, waiting for the breakthrough, waiting for the relationship, whatever it may be. And Lacey and I were having this conversation with her, specifically her personal life. And so we thought, you know what, this would be a great pilot episode. This is something people can relate to, and that's why we chose to talk about it. So Lacey, I guess I'll let you talk about kind of what we were talking about over the phone. What is your current waiting season? What are you waiting on?
Well, because hopefully with our intros and us working out the kinks of everything regarding the podcast, we want to make sure that this is real, it's authentic for people watching. Again, this is in my bedroom. Our setup is brought to you by wedding flowers from her wedding. It's all stuff that is in the works. We're just trying to make this podcast more about the realness, the reality of things, also the authentic side of who we are, but also what we've gone through to help other people. So the main idea of this podcast first came about almost a year ago. It was always something in the back of my head. I always thought I wanted to do something like this, but never thought like everyone does, we always doubt it a little bit. But then I reached out to Holly when I was living in Dallas at the time, and told her this was a calling that I kept praying about, and we finally said, okay, well, you're moving back home, so let's go ahead and give it a try. So this is how the podcast got started. The name, everything just worked itself out. But eventually, as we go on, you'll learn that we're just going to try to be as honest as possible. We're not doctors. We're not licensed in anything that has to do with your safety, your health, or anything. Just take it with a grain of salt.
And we have no idea what we're doing.
Most of the time, yeah.
So we're kind of, not that we're trying to do this in a half-baked sort of way. We're trusting that however we go about this, that whatever God wants to say through us, he's going to say.
Yeah.
And we're trusting that it's going to reach someone. And even if you're not Christian, this is not just for Christians. We welcome everybody here, all walks of life. But like Lacey said, while I am an attorney, none of this is legal advice. We're not doctors. We're just two sisters who have interacted with so many women and men who are going through similar things, and they have found our advice helpful, usually in some way. And we've had multiple people say, hey, start a podcast. And so we don't know what we're doing as far as camera and lighting and sound, but we're making it work. And we hope that, our prayer is that it helps in some way.
The message is the main thing. So that's what we'll get across. But yes, mainly back to this, more on the lines of, not appreciating, but I would probably say embracing your waiting season. I think a lot of us have different kinds, or we think that we're kind of in our own world of that, whether it be your single season, whether you're married and you're trying to navigate marriage, whether you're a single mom or a stay-at-home mom, or you're navigating a new career field and you're just kind of in this almost stuck feeling. And I was telling her about this too. I wanted to talk about that and open with that, because I think everybody at some point in their life or currently has been going through why do I feel like I'm stuck? Why do I feel like it's not moving? And a lot of my girls, even in the Bible study that I'm in, we talk about this as well. So that's what we're doing.
What are you specifically stuck in right now, if you're comfortable sharing?
Oh yeah, everything I'm going to share is absolute honesty. I'm an open book. I have nothing to hide. But for me, especially because you saw my text and you saw what I was going through, a lot of it is my waiting season, a season of singleness, and also being in a season of seeing your family and seeing your friends all around you getting married, getting engaged, having children, and that can kind of play a toll on you. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's thought, well, what about me?
So to put it in practical terms for people, how long have you been single?
Oh gosh, what year? 2024? Probably about almost a little over 3.5, almost 4 years.
That's single, y'all. That's single as a Pringle.
Like,
I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean, like, some people are like, oh, I've been single for 6 months. I'm like, girl, that ain't single. Single for 3 or 4 years is single. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I just mean to emphasize, like, how long Lacey has been waiting for her person. That's a season, y'all. That's not just a couple of months in between boyfriends or girlfriends. That's like, man, I've had to get to know myself in these 3 or 4 years. I've had to figure some things out. And like I said, that is not to be disrespectful to Lacey. That is true. Just, there's someone out there that's sitting there going, man, me too. Like 3 or 4 years, me too. And I'm sure the Lacey 4 years ago is very different than the Lacey that's sitting right here because of that singleness.
But it was, like you said, it's been a season for me, but that's my season. That's my journey. Somebody else may have been through a breakup, or they quit their job, or they got fired from their job, or they moved cities, and it was a great thing, and they couldn't wait, and it was relieving. But for me, the breakup was not something I expected. It was something out of the blue. It was basically my biggest heartbreak. And I think, though, looking back 4 years later, it's been the greatest blessing I can ever imagine, other than my beautiful nieces. I have been forced, by the grace of God, I have been forced to learn to love who I am, to stand strong and firm in my faith and know who I am through Christ. I was forced to basically get myself out of this pity party of I'm not good enough, I'm not qualified, God's forgotten about me. And it really did force me to try new things, get out there, make new friends, but also I lost a lot of good friends. I lost friends that I thought were going to be there for me, but everything in this season, 4 years if you will, has been everything I didn't know I needed. And I think that's one thing I hope a lot of people in their waiting season tries to grasp, because believe me when I say I understand. It is extremely frustrating. It is extremely irritating when other people tell you, oh, it'll happen when you least expect it. Quit looking. Oh, you're looking in the wrong places. Go to church and you'll find it. It's not necessarily that easy.
So to give y'all the good, the bad, and the ugly, I'm gonna force Lacey to break this down. Like, what did that after that breakup, what did that first year look like? Like, did you just have this happy-go-lucky attitude, or were you making good decisions? Were you making bad decisions? What did that first year after that breakup look like for you? Like, what was that part of the waiting season? I don't even know if you remember.
No, I do.
Was that when you moved to Lubbock?
Yeah, I moved to Lubbock. I got one of my first big girl jobs. I have my master's in neuroscience, so I graduated with my master's, and soon after that it was COVID and all that, so I moved. But the breakup was...
for a job.
Moved for a job, absolutely. The breakup was right before I moved. But I will say... Yeah, but to be honest, that was the hardest year of my life. That was the hardest year. I was broken. I was going out and I tried to mend my pain with drinking, and I tried to go out and party, and it did not work, because that's not who I am. That's not how I've grown up. Alcohol wasn't really a thing for me until I did that.
And not to interrupt you, but I will say it was very out of the blue, even from an outside perspective, from my perspective, for Lacey, because that's not Lacey. So when I was having to be an outsider, watching her kind of go down this almost self-destructive path, I was like, I mean, what do you do? Like, because that's a person that's in so much pain and so lost that nothing you really say to them is going to get through. And there's probably someone out there sitting in that spot where you are in so much pain, you're doing all the wrong things to try to numb it, and the people that love you might be trying to talk to you, but you can't hear them. And that's a tough spot to be in.
And it's like you want to hear them too. And I knew that in that season when I was going down a darker path, I had strayed from Christ, I was so angry. I think my grieving stages, as a lot of us go through, is different for everybody. Everybody grieves differently. But the process of being hurt and being angry at whatever happened in your life, and you just can't seem to shake it, or you're like, okay, I'm going to go to this next level. And then you're kind of in that season of, okay, I'm better now. But now at this point you're doing avoidance. So you're avoiding what's actually happening. And for me, straying from Christ, to look at it from a different lens, I had to do that to see that I never want to ever do that again. That was the darkest season of my life, and there are things I wish I could take back. There are things I wish I didn't do, but I'm not, fixated on it. That happened in the past. I asked God to forgive me, and that was everything I needed to do in order to get stronger in my faith.
But was forgiving yourself just that easy, or did it take some time?
No, forgiveness is the hardest part, especially if it's to yourself, because the devil tries to tell you lies of you're shameful, you're guilty, how could you do that, you're a mess, when really God's trying to tell you, I know you, I love you, despite everything, you are still saved. That's why I died on the cross. But it took me a while, and I actually still have to this day some of my truest friends I met in Lubbock when I was at my darkest place, and they pulled me out of a really dark spot.
I think you're in one of them's wedding coming up.
Not in, but one of the women in blue kind of thing. But another wedding as well coming up in June. But another friend of mine in Dallas pulled me out of a dark place. I found my people in the darkness. Those people that stayed with me, let me hurt for a little bit, allowed me to grieve, allowed me to blow off steam, but they never left. They were like, you take your time, do what you have to do. But to be honest, it took me having to hit rock bottom, absolute rock bottom. I cried out to Jesus. I said, I don't want to live like this anymore. I'm miserable. I need to be healed. So I went to church that same weekend, that Sunday, sat in the back left, and I almost walked out because I was crying. Everything that the pastor was saying was what I needed to hear. And fast forward 4 years later, I have traveled, I have lost, I've loved in different ways. No, I haven't had a boyfriend at all, but it's been amazing. I mean, I don't care to have one. I don't care to look for one. If it's meant for me, it will find me. I know God knows what's in my heart. I know He knows what's in my prayers. I asked Him to make me a better woman. I asked Him to make me a woman of God, a Proverbs 31 woman, and the man that broke me is the man that I will never allow to be the father of my children, or just that type of man. And I didn't realize it 4 years. I'm sure as many of us go through, whether that's dating, whether that's a job, you have to go through some of the hardest things in your life that absolutely break you down in order to see what you will never settle for again.
And the reason I'm sort of breaking this down year by year and forcing Lacey to relive some painful memories is because I know there is someone, I know there's someone sitting there that is like, man, I'm in my waiting season and I'm not doing it well. Like, there's waiting well. Are you waiting well?
Yeah.
You can wait in all the wrong ways. But I think the trick is not getting out of the waiting season, but learning to wait well. And Lacey in that first year was not waiting well. And she knows that. Like, but I mean, there's keys to getting through even the dark, you're not waiting very well times. And like Lacey pointed out, it was having friends that she could count on, good friends, like people that want the best for you.
And I lost a lot of friends though too. I lost a ton of friends that only hung around me for certain reasons, or just didn't really care to check on me. They didn't care that was something that absolutely broke me. And because of that though, now that they're out of my life and I'm looking back with a clean heart, a healed mind. I mean, I can't even tell y'all how I feel right now in terms of I am so happy. Not every day is good. Not every day is sunshine and rainbows.
4 years is a long time.
But I have never been more secure and more content and happy with who I am. But I will say this, that did not come unless I went through that darkness. That was what I had to go through to realize, oh my goodness gracious, first off, get up. You're better than this. You should never, ever be stuck in this season for that long over a guy, over a job, over any circumstance. But again, grief is different for everybody. And in that, like she said, in that season of waiting, how are you waiting? Are you waiting pitifully? Are you waiting powerfully? Are you trying new things? Are you being patient with yourself? If you're religious, like I said, we have all different backgrounds here. We just openly talk about our faith and our religion. But with the love of God and with how He has taught us in Scripture, are you getting closer to Him? And I think in my year 2 was when I started to realize.
Were you still in Lubbock, or had you?
No, year two, I was coming back here for a little bit, and that was when I started to heal. That was the worst part. And let me tell you, when you start to heal in a different season, it's almost like you're having to reopen a wound and clean it out. And that's sometimes the worst part, because now you got to address those situations. You actually have to take accountability and say, okay, yes, I made some bad choices, but you know what? That's not who I am. My choices are not me. And
that's kind of the best way to describe it. It's disgusting, but like, think about a wound and it's gotten infected, right? Well, the only way to get it to heal is to open it up further, clean out the nasty, and then allow it to heal properly. And I think that was Lacey's year 2, was the ooey gooey gross clean out.
And it was hard because there were things that I had to let go of. There were things that God was trying to show me, hey, I need you to let go of this in order to get better. And I'm stubborn, so I was like, no, I don't want to. I'm comfortable, and I had
specifically did you have, if you can say?
I had to learn you cannot, at least for me, again, everything is per my experience, but we talk based off of advice that maybe you're going through. For me, in that second year of healing, I had to isolate. And I mean, no talking to boys, no trying to go on dates with boys, no focusing on parties. I tried to focus on my job and my family. I moved home to where I knew I was going to be cared for. My health took a major hit, and but I'm glad He did, because He showed me, hey, look at what happens to you when you don't put me first, when you don't follow what I'm asking you to do and isolate yourself and get to know me. My health deteriorated. I mean, I was anxiety. I lost a ton of weight that's not normal for me. My sleep was probably non-existent at that point. But
did we, not to interrupt your train of thought, but was that the year when we competed? Mm-hmm. Was that year 2? Mm-hmm. You were trying to compete in Ooey Gooey Clean Out the Wound year?
I did.
Ooh, that's rough. What I'm talking about, y'all, is Lacey and I entered a bodybuilding competition together. I had competed before, but this would be my second time, and Lacey wanted to do it with me, which was a lot of fun, but it was also very challenging for her. And I remember this because I felt like I walked alongside it the whole time. Even like that competition was so much harder, because if you've ever been in a bodybuilding competition, or even if you haven't, it is the most mentally challenging thing you will ever do, because you are having to stick to a very strict diet. You're having to stick to a strict workout regime. Like, it is the most it is a mental marathon as much as it is physical. And so if you are not in the right headspace, it's that much harder. And I think Lacey wasn't quite in that headspace yet. So the bodybuilding competition was part of what I think was cleaning out old wounds. It was bringing stuff out that she hadn't dealt with yet. And so it was very challenging, but at the same time, I think that competition also gave her something to focus on, something to like go towards. Because sometimes when you're going through a waiting season, you need a goal, you need something to keep you moving forward, even if it's painful, even if you're feeling like you're crawling on your hands and knees towards that goal. Put something healthy, a healthy goal in front of you that you can fight for, something that makes you get out of bed every day, because we were working out at 6 o'clock in the morning every day.
2 a day, some days.
Yeah, 2 a day, some days.
It forced me to realize, and she knew this, I mean, being my sibling, she's known me my whole life, but she knew that a lot of this competition and a lot of me coming back and focusing and doing a lot of the healing part was figuring out who I was as a person outside of another human. And I don't think I quite knew that, because a lot of my personality and who I was, I identified through him. I was just that girlfriend. I wanted to make sure that he was put first. And I ended up putting myself very much last. So finding out who I was by doing the bodybuilding competition, by coming around my friends and family that truly cared about me, following God, listening to what He's saying through Scripture, that was huge, because that was the hardest thing, trying to let go of certain patterns and behaviors that I thought were normal when they weren't normal. It was a lot of emotional abuse. It was a lot of just self-deprecation, and I had to find a way. I had to find an outlet, and like you said, you pick something that you know you can stay disciplined to, and you know you can challenge yourself. And once you challenge yourself, or you put that task in front of you, it starts to show you who you are. It shows you a different side that you probably couldn't or didn't believe before. And I think a lot of us tend to get a little tied up in society. We get tied up in our job, tied up in a relationship, tied up in family, and we forget who we are.
And Lacey didn't enter this competition expecting to win anything.
No, gosh, no.
You typically do not win bodybuilding competitions unless you've been at it for years. It's a years, almost sometimes lifelong type of discipline. And so that wasn't the point, though. The point was, year one, let's hit rock bottom. Let's recognize where we are. Let's understand that God works all things out for the good of those who love Him. Let's lean on our friends and family. and let's move into year 2 where, yeah, I'm still hurting. We're still cleaning out the wounds. I'm still not 100% okay, but I'm getting out of bed. I'm focusing on something. And the reason I break it down like that is because I like to give practical advice to people. If you're in a waiting season, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a breakup or a season of singleness, it can be anything. You're waiting for a job, whatever it is. I think you need to recognize where you're at, whatever that is, even if it's ugly, even if it's something you're not proud of. Embrace that, recognize where you're at, and then figure out where you want to go, or at least figure out something positive to put one foot in front of the other towards.
Shift the narrative a bit.
Yeah.
Be afraid, or not be afraid, but be afraid to not shift the narrative. I think a lot of times with having to grow and figure out in your season of waiting, okay, God, what do you need me to do? Or if it's a career, if you're trying to figure out to move, if you're trying to figure out what to do with a family member or your spouse or your kids, whatever it may be, you have to ask yourself, okay, if this is going to take a lot of change, I need to reflect inward. And a lot of people don't want to. Yeah, you got to be honest. But at the same time, the biggest growth for me was being able to stop pointing the finger, stop complaining, stop saying, woe is me. And I looked inward and said, I'm doing this for the girl that didn't get that opportunity. I'm doing this for the girl that was treated awfully. I literally said to myself, I am doing this to get myself back. And I said that over and over. I was like, I'm doing this for me. I want to believe in myself again. So I did. It went great. We placed. Both of us placed. We did a wonderful job. And it was huge. That was kind of the turning point where I said, how capable am I? Like it almost was I'm not going to doubt myself anymore. And then year 3 and 4 was probably the year where I finally got over that little that hump. I was like, yes, okay. Now I had a clearer mindset. I thought about going back in the dating world, but again, I also had another season of waiting, and that one was a lot different.
So year 3, were you still living here at home?
This was half and half. So year 3-ish, I had been traveling a lot to DFW, and I was applying for the job, my previous job. I was applying for it. It was kind of split.
I'm trying to, because
I was still here, but I was also trying to get to DFW.
But so yeah, the year 2 was bodybuilding, reaching towards something to get you out of bed, and then that year 3, I think I remember. And we don't have to get exact here, y'all, but we're trying to give you something concrete that you can relate to. And I think year 3, at some point, you moved to DFW.
Mm-hmm. I did. I moved up after I got my job opportunity. I was at the same job I was at in Lubbock and San Angelo. That was still the same job for 2.5 years. Same company. But I finally decided I wanted to kind of stretch my wings a bit, and I knew I was ready to go to a bigger city. I wanted to. That was always the goal, and I was in a much better headspace. I think that was the season where I realized that I just knew. I was like, this is where I'm meant to be. This is where God needed me to be.
When you went to Lubbock that first year, you were running from something.
Oh yeah,
for sure. And so I think this move, she wasn't running from anything. It was a different move.
It was I know I have to do this. God is calling me to do this.
Yeah, so it was a different type of move. It was a more positive move, I think, because you were in a better headspace. You'd figured a lot of stuff out and went to DFW. And I think that was a year ago. Mm-hmm. Wow, it's been a year.
That's why I was like almost 4. Like it's in between that almost mark. But
was there anything that happened in DFW that?
Oh yeah.
Like what we talked about, kind of cleaning out the wound, and that was part of it. When do you think you finally cleaned all that crap out, or are you still cleaning it out and working on it?
It's almost like I mean, this is just a saying that I've lived off of for a few years. is healing is not linear. It's never linear. You're going to have stages and moments in life where you feel like you're doing great for a few months and then you're kind of in a slump a few months. And I cannot express enough how normal that is. I hate when people say, well, I'm back in the bad place again. You know what? That's okay. Sometimes your body needs rest rather than sleep. And those are two very different things. But for me, going to DFW, I was so excited. I remember I was just like, man, this is what I prayed for. But if God had given it to me 2 years prior when I thought I wanted it, I would have destroyed it. So going now, it was more about my job. I was so excited about my job. I was in a much better headspace. I think it took, since the breakup, since the biggest thing, I think for me personally, where I had to learn, okay, who is Lacey? Who am I?
Sorry, y'all. We just had one of our dogs bust in.
It's okay. She's okay. That's
We're
Shadowbug.
good.
But I had to learn who is Lacey, and I think with God and how he reaches different people, he may have to knock you upside the head sometimes, or he talks sweeter to other people. For me, I'm very stubborn. He had to show me kind of the hardest parts first. But finally...
Sorry, go ahead. I'm horrible about interrupting y'all.
No, I mean, I'm just trying to speak as honest as I can. From that 2.5 years, I had never felt more like this was what I was meant to do, a calling on my heart. I had a better mindset, but I had entered a new season. This new season was, okay, a career. And this new season of waiting on my career was now, okay, I'm starting from ground zero again. How do I do this? I don't know what I'm doing at this job. These are brand new coworkers. This is a brand new boss. And I cannot complain about that. I had a great boss, amazing coworkers whom I still talk to today. But I moved and my roommate and I got together and we just started living life. I think this is the season where God said, okay, you healed, you hurt, you grew, you grieved, but now I need you to live your life. I need you to figure out who you are away from your family in a new job with a brand new experience. This was two very different fields for me. And that was so amazing. I had never seen so much growth in myself in terms of loving who I am, accepting my failures, accepting my mistakes, being okay with what happened to me, and also forgiving who hurt me, forgiving the people that didn't treat me right, or the people that, betrayed me behind my back. Whatever the situation was, I was in this season of forgiveness, and all I could think of was find yourself.
Well, and Lacey said something a minute ago about how, I'm going to butcher how you said it, about healing is never linear.
Nope, it's not.
And I heard it explained this way the other day. I was listening to another podcast and I heard them explaining it this way. And if you all are just listening, I really don't know how to articulate what I'm showing visually with my hands, but I mean, typically when you think of like your highs and lows in life, you think of a wave like this, like a curvy wave. You've got your highs and your lows and your highs and your lows, and that's pretty typical for life. But the thing that people don't realize is a lot of times that wave is not going in a straight 180 degree line. It's a wave, but it's moving in an upward trajectory. So if you can see me on the screen, you still have waves, but it's going upwards. So even the low valleys of where you are up here are still better than the highs of where you used to be. Yeah. So like, even if you're still having ups and downs, your downs are still better than your previous ups. So like, it's okay if you're in this waiting season and you still feel like, man, sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Well, that's okay as long as your downs are better than they were a year ago or 2 years ago, or as long as you're continually working on yourself and working on growth and working on changing your life in some way. And I'd heard it explained that way and I was like, man, I love that. And what she just said made me think of it, because change and healing isn't linear. I don't think life is linear.
You can always, because I was there. Again, everything I've said, I've either been through it, conquered it, or going through it. And one thing for me is I was in a little season, at some point in the healing process where I was so upset at God. I was so upset at why it happened to me. How could this happen? You know, very complaining, just why me? Why me? Poor, pitiful me. And I think a lot of us tend to do that because it's easy. It's easy to focus on the negative. It's easy to say, why me, when this person, especially when that person hurt you, or that job didn't treat you right, or your family is saying things and doing things that are against what you want or your morals. But the one thing that I had to pull myself out of was, I can sit here in this little pity party and be bitter and be angry and start letting it, you know, consume me, which it did, because it'll start to pour out of you. Or I can get up and say, you know what? Why wouldn't it happen to me? This happened to me for a reason. Just like with you, everything you're going through in your waiting season, wherever you are, it's happening to you for a reason. There's a reason you're going through this. There's a reason why God is saying, I need you to do this. And it may not be either to show you something at the moment. It's probably because God is needing you to teach other people. Again, we can't be selfish here. Not everything is about, oh, why me, why me, why me? Instead, we got to say, God, how are you going to use me? How are you going to show other people that they can do this through me? Or whatever his task is. But like you were saying, where I got that healing is never linear psych background, I also saw, this is a podcast I saw this from, I don't take credit for this, but this gentleman said, usually in a different period or era of your life, if you want something that's steady and you just want happiness all the time, or you just want to keep a good pace, what happens is, if you look at it almost like a heart monitor, the heart monitor constantly goes up and down. We've all seen it in the movies, the thing that goes boop, boop, boop. But the problem is, that up and down is keeping you beating. It's keeping you going. What happens when it flatlines,
you're dead.
You're dead. You know, and so when he said that, I went, oh my goodness gracious. I was living in almost, I think it's AFib. I was living in the flat line. I was living in the, well, I guess I'll wait for something to come along, just like a lot of us are. Well, I guess we'll wait. I guess I'll just wait and see what happens. But don't waste your waiting season. Don't waste it. Allow yourself
wait well, don't waste it.
Allow yourself to fail. Allow yourself to try new things. Be kind to yourself. Go do something you wouldn't normally do. Go, if you're not comfortable going to places alone, okay, that's fine. You can still bring somebody, but try to go do things you're not comfortable with. Talk to people that maybe need a friend. Do things in your waiting season that distract from you, because once you keep pointing the finger at you, it starts to consume you. Trust me, I've been there, I've done it. And that year 3 was the year of help others find a way to share, find a way to get out there. And I didn't go to bars. I didn't go do all that. I went with my roommate. We went to marketplaces. We went and found coffee shops. If you've ever been to DFW, there's a ton, and we wanted to hit them all. I went and one of my other best friends, her and I went to go see the malls, or a lot of the pumpkin stuff during the fall in the Dallas Farmers Market. If you're not comfortable getting out, if you're an introvert, Holly's real good at that as well. She's all about her books, and she loves, not in a bad way, but she loves reading.
Not denying
She
it.
likes being inside, so she can provide, if you don't want to go outside. But being in different seasons can bring about different sides of you in a good way. In a good way. It's okay to have multiple sides of you, because we're constantly growing. We're constantly changing as human beings.
None of these things Lacey's talking about changes the fact that you're waiting. It just makes the waiting better.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't change the fact
you won't
that
be so miserable.
You're still waiting for the promotion. It doesn't change the fact that you're still waiting for your husband to show up, or your wife. It doesn't change that, but it changes the here and now, and it changes your mindset. And if
mindset is everything.
I've also heard it said, like, you can't change your life without changing your mind. I mean, it's just impossible. And if you don't want change, then lower your standards. Honestly, I know that sounds harsh, but like, if you don't want to change in life, lower your expectations for your life, because if you're not going to change, then that's as good as it's going to get for you.
Well, and if you allow your emotions to control you and get the better of you, you'll always stay stagnant. And I used to be like that.
That's the word.
I used to be like that. I was always, I would get very emotional because I would see others around me, and it's the comparison game. I would see others around me having babies, getting married, getting engaged, moving on with their life, and I was thinking, man, what am I doing wrong? But do you see how that's my first thought? That should not be your first thought. You're not doing anything wrong. There's no wrong way to go about your life. There's no wrong way to go about your waiting season. The best thing you can...
There could be a wrong way to go about your waiting season if it's...
To an extent, yes. Everything in life. But you have to change that mindset. Instead of seeing a picture on Instagram and maybe you get a little jealous, or maybe you do the comparison game because we're human, instead shift your mindset. When you see that, or you see somebody getting pregnant, and maybe women out there have tried IVF, they're going through, they're trying everything to have a baby. Whatever your circumstances, try to shift it and say, you know what? Good for them. They probably needed that. God probably has that in their path because they had something I had no idea about. You have to be willing to shift your mindset in your waiting season to not why me, why not me, to okay, during this phase, I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep seeing what God has for me. Why not me is more of a when it's for me. When it's my time.
I think this is your year 4. This is your current year. This is
my current year.
We're talking about Lacey's current stage. So we've walked you through.
I moved back.
I've sort of spotlighted Lacey's life for this first episode.
Yeah, that was not planned.
She's being a good sport about it. But here we are in year 4, her current year. So we've walked you through year 1, dark place, rock bottom. Year 2, okay, I can breathe a little. I'm focusing on something, even though I still feel like garbage. Year 3, I'm feeling better. I'm learning some things. I'm learning to forgive myself. I'm learning, how to wait well. I'm learning not to waste this waiting season. And to year 4, where she's like, man, I'm in a really good place. I have a fantastic job. I'm around my family, but I'm still single. Like that's the thing. She didn't, her singleness never changed in those 4 years, but she changed. So she's closer to being somebody's wife than she ever was 4 years ago. So she's waiting well now. Like, that's the whole point we're trying to make, is like, your waiting season has stages, and you can do it well, or you can do it pitifully. I mean,
there has to come a point, you have to come to a point in your life, whatever you're going through, to say to yourself, okay, if I don't start adapting to each change, each season, that's why, even if you look at nature, summer, spring, winter, fall, if you don't start adapting to each season rather than complaining about what's not happening in the season, you're going to be stuck. And a lot of times, I think I see this in a lot of my girlfriends and a lot of my friends and coworkers, we tend to fixate on stuff that isn't happening to us because we think, well, I deserved it. I deserve it more than them. And that's where I think God says, why would I ever level you up if you can't love where you're at right now?
Or if you can't be happy for someone else who has what
why
you
would
want?
I ever level you up? What makes you think you deserve it? And I think, like what she was saying, yes, I moved back home and I'm so happy. I love my current job. I am blessed more than I can say. But like she said, if God had brought me, let's say, I'm still single, but so happy in my singleness. Have I tried to go on dates? Absolutely.
Sure,
have I been on dates? No, I definitely got to see different types of guys. I definitely got to meet
Lots of toads.
Yeah, there's still toads out there, ladies. They're always there, as you know. But I found what I wanted and what I didn't want it, and I did make some great friendships. Not all of them were bad. A lot of them we mutually agreed it's just not for us. But I had to get to a point where 4 years ago, if I had stayed the same person I was, I would have let these men treat me awful. I would have let them speak disrespectfully to me. I would have let them basically just consume my happiness. And now, fast forward to who this girl is, I don't tolerate it. It's almost like first date is a resume. You either come with the idea of, I'm looking to be a husband and a father. You're not just looking for a wife and a mother. That's a different thing too. But I had to get in the mindset of as well, I'm ready to be a wife and a mother. I'm not trying to rush God's plan, but if I didn't go through each season, each heartbreak, hardship, glorious moments, challenges, struggles, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be this strong. I wouldn't be this adamant about what I want, who I want it from. And if you don't put Christ first, then I just know from what I've been through, I know what I want. I know what I bring to the table. And I'm telling you, if you're in this waiting season of, oh my God, but Lacey, I've done everything. I've done that. I'm close with Christ. I've done this. I've done that. I've done that. Okay, but maybe he's not working on you anymore. He's working on your husband or your wife. He's not done with them yet. And if he brings you two together too soon, which he would never do, his time is perfect. But if he were to bring y'all together too soon before either of y'all are ready, you're going to destroy it.
And that could be for other things as well. We've talked about this a lot.
A career, everything.
Say you're waiting on a career, like you're in a job that you can't stand, and you're like, man, when am I going to get a promotion? When am I going to get my dream job?
I worked harder for this.
Can you honestly ask yourself truly and honestly, if God handed you the job you think you want, could you handle it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready for it, or would you ruin it because you're not ready yet? I think about that in terms of my life. Like, I've been an attorney for 7 years, and I think about the most recent job I had before I resigned to be a mom full-time, and I never could have handled that job straight out of law school. Like, I'd have gotten fired. There's no way. The level I had to be at and the experience I had to have to be, just to tell y'all, I was one of the city attorneys in the town that we live in. That's a big responsibility. And there's no way that fresh out of law school Holly could have handled that. I'd have been fired. I would have messed something up. The city would have exploded. Something. I don't know. You wouldn't be ready for it. And that's okay. It's okay to not be ready for something, but be honest with yourself about that and find ways to get ready. Look for ways that God can work on you. Look for ways that you can work on yourself. I think it applies to singleness. It applies to jobs. It applies to maybe things that are out of your control. Maybe you've got, maybe you've got a kid that is just not on the right path, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. This could apply to anything, I feel like.
There's so many avenues, and it's hard to touch them all. So if you're sitting there and you're listening to this going, man, they don't know my life. I've struggled with addiction. I've struggled with pornography. I've struggled with not having a family, not having parents, not having guidance. If you're dealing with stuff that's a darkness, like you think no one can understand, we're not trying to touch on all of that because it's almost impossible to bring light to everything, but in a bigger umbrella of picture of things, we're just trying to relate to bigger piece of advice can relate to all of this. Whether you're spiritual or not, I say prayer. Prayer changes everything, and I've said this since I also strayed from Christ, believe me. But from her perspective, being a mom, if she and her husband waited a while to get married because financially it was just made more sense, it worked for them, but also if she had been a mother in the early stages of their relationship, it probably wouldn't have worked.
I couldn't have.
So a lot of times,
to give y'all concrete perspective, I'm 33 now, and I just had my baby 6 months ago. So I had her when I was 32, but I'm 33 now. So I didn't get married until I was 30, and that's not that unusual anymore, but in the grand scheme of things, that's waiting a while. Most people get married in their 20s. And I met my husband when I was 26, I think. And we didn't get married till I was 30, which there were reasons for that, and I won't go into all of that. But sometimes like waiting's a good thing. If I had,
it helps you grow in that.
There's
season.
No way, like I think about all that I am doing with my daughter and who you have to be as a mom and as a person in order to nurture a child well, not just keep them alive, but to nurture them well and to train them. That person I was at 26 could not have handled having a baby. Like I wasn't immature or, you know, in a weird place, but like I wouldn't have been ready. There's no way I could have been ready for a child back then. My career wasn't where I needed it to be. I wasn't disciplined in my finances. That's a whole other podcast. My husband and I had to really get serious about our finances, and there's just so many things that if you truly honestly take a look at your life and your current waiting season, you might find some stuff where you're like, ooh, yeah, I'm not ready for my husband to show up yet. I've got some work to do. Or, man, I'm not ready for that promotion because it requires me to do X and I don't know how to do that. Like I would ruin it. Someone else might be better for that right now. Like really, truly take a good look at your life.
That's actually a good point. And I think for me, I like to do main takeaways. For me, the main takeaway, I think if you've stuck with us this long and you enjoy this, we try to break it up into parts to make it a little bit shorter. But the main takeaways in your waiting season, whatever it is, whatever the darkness, whatever the light, whatever it is, it can be good and bad seasons. Make sure that in your waiting season, you don't waste it, you embrace it, but also the best advice I can give, because I try to think about things a lot before I say them now. I've been working on that for years. There's a lot that can be said for a waiting season, and everyone's waiting season is different.
I think you've said it before, where you had to seriously ask yourself, am I ready to be married? Am I ready to be somebody's wife?
Like, it's okay. The word I'm looking for, I think, is it's okay to not point the finger at yourself, but take accountability.
Oh, yeah.
It's not in a bad way. I don't want that to sound bad. I want it to come off as sometimes you're put in a waiting season of isolation because you have to be alone. If you do not take accountability and learn who you are and become confident and true to yourself, how do you expect for anybody else to see you that way? And I think that's what I'm getting at, is in your waiting season, yes, don't waste it. Try new things. Figure out who you are, but also look at yourself and truly ask yourself, do I deserve these things? Is this going to be something that benefits me and my family? Should that X, Y, or Z have happened to me right now, or can I wait a little longer? And even be true to yourself. Like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Don't lie to yourself. Be real, because that was the biggest thing,
with yourself. You need to take a cold, hard look at yourself. And I'm not saying be, critical.
Don't be critical. Don't do that. Yeah, no.
I'm just saying,
that's where I'm getting stuck.
You won't experience change if you're not honest about where you currently are. And I think,
be gracious while being kind to yourself, because that was something I think I forgot. I forgot in my season of growing and isolation in year 2. I needed to remind myself that yes, I'm growing, I'm healing, and God is teaching me to look inward. I was very self-critical to the point where God was like, hey, hold on now. I never told you to be mean to yourself. I never told you to take on this guilt and shame that is absolutely just absolutely eating at you. I had to now shift the mindset and go, you know what? Look at how much you've grown. How proud are you? Like, good for you. I had to remind myself, you did that. Do you remember? You did that. Be your own cheerleader. As cheesy as that sounds, as corny as that sounds.
Sort of concrete example of what Lacey's saying. Like 4 years ago, Lacey, if she was experiencing the stress of waiting and it was worrying her and keeping her up at night, the phone call I would have gotten would have been a lot of, woe is me, why is this happening to me, why is it always me, kind of the broken record, why me, and I'm not saying this to make fun of her, I'm saying this to make a point.
No, I had to come to terms with it.
And the phone call that I got, or the text I got a couple days ago was, hey, I'm having a hard day right now because I spent a beautiful weekend with my siblings, me and her twin brother, and I watched y'all with your spouses and your kids, and I'm still single, and I'm not even close to having a kid. I'm not even close to having a spouse. So, hey, I'm having a hard time. So forgive me if I'm snippy, but just bear with me. And it's something I just need to talk through. That approach was not there 4 years ago. That was proof of the growth. Is she still single?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, as a Pringle, like I said. But she's learned to wait well, and the fact that she's learned to deal with the stress and the emotions in a more healthy way means when she does get married and conflict arises and she's stressed towards her spouse, she's going to have a way healthier approach to talking to him about it, to approaching him about it. There's not going to be any screaming matches or, you know, God knows what. So my point with that is, like, whatever the thing is or the person or situation you think is that you want, would you honestly right now at this point in your life steward it well? Because we are nothing but stewards of everything that God has given us. He can take it away in an instant. So what he cares about is, are you stewarding it well? Are you stewarding it in a way that benefits others, that shines light on his kingdom? And if you're not, if you really think to yourself, man, if I was given that job, I don't think I could steward it well. Well, figure out what you'd have to do to be in a position to steward it well.
Start working on what you know you can get better at, but also don't be self-deprecating. Don't be so mean to yourself. That is one thing I can't express enough. You cannot grow in an environment where you are your own worst critic. You need to give yourself grace, and you have to be willing to say, you know what, I don't understand this, but I will. You know what, I'm not quite where I know I need to be as a wife and as a mother, but I will. And one thing that you might be able to work on, or actually, if you're like me and you take notes or you write stuff down in a journal, one thing I did during my season was I wrote some things down on a note card, and I keep it in my Bible. But one side is cleanse and the other side is becoming. So I wrote down everything that I felt I needed to work on and everything that I wanted God to cleanse me of. The other side is things that I want him to help me become so that I can be the wife and the mother that I know he's called me to be. And it's a true desire in my heart. It might not be happening right now. He has a few more things to work on. I'm traveling everywhere. But for example, I'll just be real with y'all. The cleanse side, I've got things in here like regret, doubt, loneliness, attachment, laziness at times, fear, control. I mean, it goes on and on. There's things you can write down, but then on the other side, it's so much better. It's learning who I am, doing things alone, spending time with Christ, helping others, being humble, trusting God, pray for your future husband, things like that.
But I would venture to guess there are people that struggle to write anything on the cleanse side because they haven't yet looked. Like I said, y'all, we might have gotten cut off a little, but what I was saying is there's some people that may not be able to write anything on the cleanse side because you haven't taken a good look at yourself.
Take your time.
You know, to avoid going in circles, I think, you know, what Lacey's saying is she's seen the pattern in her life, and I think a lot of us have. We're just kind of spotlighting Lacey to give y'all something concrete, example-wise.
I've had an interesting few years.
I mean, this is how I teach. I teach a lot of business law and legal ethics, and this is how I teach my courses, is I find a concrete case, a concrete example, and I use that to illustrate points. And that's what we've done with Lacey's life here, and I hope that it's maybe reflective of something y'all are going through. You know, maybe you're sitting in year 1 and you're in rock bottom.
It gets better.
And
I hated when people told me that, but it truly does.
And if you need professional help, please go get it. Like, I say that with zero shame and with all the encouragement in the world. Like, there are professionals who are good at their job for that. So don't hesitate if you're really, really in a dark place. I always want to say that. Or maybe you're in year 2 where you're like, all right, I'm not rock bottom anymore, but I still feel pretty crummy. And I really don't know what to do. Find something positive to go towards. Maybe it's not fitness, but maybe it's, you know, it could be anything.
A hobby.
Maybe you want to read a book a month, something that's like a self-improvement, you want to learn something, read a book a month, or whatever it may be. Find something that gets you out of bed every day. Get up, dress up, show up. Or maybe you're in year 3 where you're like, all right, I'm not at rock bottom. I don't feel as crummy anymore. I've done a lot of self-work, but I'm still kind of unsure of what I'm supposed to be doing. Try new things, like Lacey said, like get yourself out there, do some deep inner work. Ask yourself if you truly are ready for the thing that you think you want. And if not, what can you do to get ready? Like, think about it that way.
Be willing to take your season and say, okay, how can I improve myself? How can I do better? How can I do what you ask me to do, God? I will do it, and be obedient. I mean, surrender your control, surrender everything to Him. And I have never felt and seen the presence of God in my life more than when I surrendered everything to Him. My finances, my job, my relationships, everything, that when I surrendered.
I think that is year 4, is surrender.
Yes, and I think, keep in mind, again, I'm not now in the clear. I mean, it's still like this, but now that I've learned almost every phase that God needed me to learn, now if something challenging comes up, or my heart is challenged, or my mind is conflicted, instead of going, stomping my feet and having a tantrum, it's now, okay, God, what do you need me to learn? And I'm able to self-soothe. I'm able to look at my emotions and say, okay, what's really going on here? And I think a lot of us in this season of waiting, whether that may be for you or not, try these practices. Try doing these little things here and there. If you aren't very expressive, try writing stuff down. If you do need to talk to somebody and you're more audible like us, absolutely go for it. Talk to people, lean on those you can trust, but be kind to yourself during these seasons. Give yourselves the grace that you would give others. It's not going to be easy, but it was everything I didn't know I needed. I can't express that enough.
And while Lacey's right, while she's not in the clear, or maybe you're not, maybe you're in that year 4, as we're calling it, where you're in surrender, where you're like, I'm in a good place, and I can let a lot of this stuff go, and I can release control, and I can just enjoy life. That's great, but even though you're not in the clear, I truly believe the breakthroughs on the other side of surrender. So
Always.
I would not be shocked for Lacey's dude to show up in like the next year or so. But what do I know?
And you have to be willing to also say, you know what, even if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be okay.
And
okay.
You're content.
Come
is
in.
The word. Who is
we
it?
have a visitor, y'all.
It might be a dog, but it might be
it's not a dog.
less hairy, tiny being.
Let me see.
Ah.
We've got Miss Jessie Jett joining us. She is Holly's
my daughter. Hi,
she is beautiful.
Come here.
Your husband's asleep.
Oh, apparently my husband's asleep.
Oh my goodness. Miss Jessie Jett, are you in your waiting season at all?
Hi, Jessie.
Are you in your waiting
hello.
season? And also, y'all, appreciate, again, like, this is one reason that I just, even though she's not mine, I would absolutely die for this child. In any season that you're in, try to focus on also the things that bring you joy. If you start to focus on the negatives, it's easy to gravitate to, but also the joy in the little things. I called them, as silly as this sounds, anytime I had and I found joy in the little things, I called them glimmer moments. And a lot of times the glimmer moments could be seeing my nieces smile, or it could have been a beautiful lake that I would always drive to. It could have been just seeing an old man buying flowers for his wife. Find joy in your season, no matter how stressful it is. I know it's hard. Believe me, I know. But it's only harder when you allow yourself to stay stuck. Allow yourself to embrace it, even if it's not your time yet. Say, you know what, when it is my time, I know I'll be ready. And I think that's the biggest thing. What do you think, Miss Jessie?
That's pretty much it, y'all. And I hate to cut it short, but it is this little one's bedtime. And one thing I've learned as a mom is that if you do not get them to bed on time, it's a nightmare the rest of the evening. So we're going to wrap up this podcast. We hope it was helpful. We hope if you're in a waiting season that you've learned how to not waste it, or you've got some ideas and a place to start. And, you know, I guess that's about it. We will see y'all in the next episode. We thank y'all for listening.
Thanks for looking and watching.
We hope you come back.
Listening.
Say bye, Jessie.
Bye-bye.